Welcome everyone to the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Joining me, as always, from across the big pond, we have the 13th Crusader and Professor Bud Young. How's it going, gentlemen?
Hi, Johnny. How are you?
I am
Howdy.
well. Howdy. Yeah, so for all those keeping track, COVID situation, we have a roadmap out. Kids go back to school tomorrow.
Whoa.
Woo! I don't have any kids, so I don't know what I'm complaining, shouting for. But non-essential retail open, which includes your local comic shop if they haven't been doing the click and collect, 12th of April. There you go. So
Wow.
congratulations. If your shop's been shut for that length of time, you will have 4 months worth of comics to pick up. Nice one.
Like looking at that going, oh my God, 4
Yeah.
months. Yeah.
I wouldn't even care. I've still got a batch of stuff from the first lockdown that I haven't got through yet. It's bonkers.
Really?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
even with all the lockdowns, you haven't had time to read your books?
I'm too busy. reviewing the damn things and then talking about them on here. So that's great. Yeah.
I guess I'm lucky.
Good for
My
us.
local shop has been open, although limited capacity, but it's just given me time to kind of reevaluate what I want to collect and read. So my pull list has gone down to single digits for the first time in more than a decade.
Wow.
I heard a rumor about you.
There's many. There's at least 13 active
I was
ones.
going to say, I was going to be about 13, wasn't there? I heard a rumor that you told your local comic book shop to stop pulling DC Comics for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need you to hand in your honorary Definitive Crusader card at the end of the show, please. Thank you.
I have 12 extra backups, so that's fine. I'll give you one.
He's a
Hey,
tiger.
in 13's defense, I haven't bought a physical copy of a Marvel comic book in 15 years. So, you know,
See, and this is why this is the best crew for this show. All right, I'm the only one buying comic books.
Hey, this is why we're talking about comic books pre 1990 because I have all those.
If I may add, it does open up my budget to focus on more older stuff, and
There you go.
especially doing this show, it's just bringing back a lot of great memories. And
Yeah,
it's either like, oh man, I used to have that book, or I want to go get it. So one of these books I do want to get after the show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is for me. It is memories, and then whenever we come up with a topic, I'm coming up with not the best book, but really kind of the best memory for me, and
Cool.
that for me, and I think I hope it's been translating onto the show. But yeah, the books that we talk about, I'm pretty passionate about, so I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
I
we
do
all
remember your dance. That's why I said howdy at the beginning.
we remember that through the Avengers pick.
Yes.
Mhm.
I make you read some really crappy books. I will not argue with you there.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. And speaking of books, we're going with the professor's choice first this week. We are going with. Let me grab my screen so you can have a look at what we're talking about. This week's theme is anniversaries and specials. So here we go. We have the Incredible Hulk number 300. Let me get the stats for you before we get into this. So this is written by Bill Mantlo. I tell you what, I hope he's giving us some royalties because we talk about him like every show now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
As we should.
Yeah. Art is by Sal Buscema, who is an industry giant for me, and Jerry Talok. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. Letters are by Jim Novak and colors are by Bob Sharon. So basically, letters and colors are the Marvel Dream Team. This book comes out in 1984. I've looked on a certain site that we won't name because we don't get any money off them either.
eBay.
This book, a pretty decent copy I looked at this morning, £10 or best offer. There you go.
Really?
Yeah, and it goes up to £50. So there you go. It's a bit of a strange.
How
bracket.
about Comic Zone?
Comics on? I've
Yeah,
not looked at that. Is that
Amazon.
new?
That's that other website, right?
I don't know. Is this a joke?
Are we messing up names of websites now to throw a comic in there?
Maybe.
Oh, I'm
So
there now. I'm there now. I've not looked. I've not looked on Comics-On. Sorry, I'm not an Optimus Prime user of Comics-On.
Okay.
Right,
yeah.
Professor.
Well,
Take it
so
away.
I think that we all had like some like very different ideas on what constituted an anniversary issue, right? Because I think when you look at the picks, we're kind of a little maybe all over the board. But my thoughts on an anniversary issue was it had to be, well, first of all, like an anniversary, like a number 300 or a 100 or something that they were celebrating. But I also thought that there should be something that happens in the book that takes the book either in a different direction
Uh-huh.
or something like a big event happens, right? So
All right. So you're saying like an event anniversary should be a celebration of the past as well as the leap
where
forward.
where do we go from here, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
so the past and celebrate the future. Now when I thought Incredible Hulk 300, this is my first anniversary book that I ever bought back in 1984 when I was a kid. I picked it up off the newsstand, off the wire rack. I'd never seen a book that big before. It was double sized, and it was a little bit more than I was used to paying. I was used to paying 60 cents for my books. This one was a whole dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. A
I
whole dollar.
and this is the first time I ever read Hulk. Previously I had read an issue of Secret Wars, and
Uh-huh.
the Hulk in that Secret Wars book was smart, right? He had his intelligence. This is one of the books that really kind of changes what we were doing before. Hulk previously in the previous storylines, he had gotten his intelligence and he was Banner inside Hulk's body,
Mm-hmm.
and that was also different from the Hulks that I remember from TV and from
Mm-hmm.
cartoons. He was always Hulk smash and jumping from place to place and just basically fighting people and destroying things. We're kind of back to this in issue 300, but this to me felt more. And this was the first time I ever saw the Hulk in a comic just fighting primarily other heroes, which is a
Mm-hmm.
Marvel staple, we know. But
Mm-hmm.
here, he pretty much takes out everybody. He gets into it with actually they showed Daredevil and Spider-Man kind of saving people around him,
Yeah.
but then he gets into it with Power Man and Iron Fist and just goes right through them. And then
Yes, it does.
of course the Avengers, who he wipes the mat with, and Doctor Strange ends up saving the day. But this is the book where it takes it off into a different direction that, personally, I don't think anybody really expected at the time.
Okay.
But I thought that this was like almost like a key issue for what happens in the future, because
Yeah.
they exile him away from Earth. It's the
Mhm.
first, and it's not the first time you've seen Hulk go away from Earth. He's been to other planets and everything before, but here he's banished from Earth and put into what's called, I don't think you find out in this issue, but it's called the Crossroads, where he actually has access to go to any number of different Earths, so that he not Earths, but any different worlds where he can try to find peace. And I actually thought that because I ended up getting the next several issues of Hulk just to kind of see what was going on, and I actually thought it was a great creative, visually creative period for the Hulk, because
Mhm.
they were able to create different worlds for him to kind of wander around in, as the brainless, mindless beast. Here, they mention that Banner sacrifices himself.
Mhm.
And so the intelligence side of himself. So this is the first time I think maybe that we see the Hulk totally bestial without any shred of intelligence. He's just a force of nature. And you notice, like, in this issue, he doesn't say anything, he doesn't talk, he doesn't even growl or roar. He's just silent, and you see he just totally wipes the map with New York City, This is pre Man of Steel, the movie, by the way. So you could see that this is actually like he's destroying the city without any regard to bystanders. Where I think reading this as a 13-year-old kid really was kind of a wake up call. Like for me, like wow, stuff could happen that people could actually get hurt. I thought this was a great issue. I think that the art suffers a little bit because I think the inking from Jerry, I can't remember his last name, was a little heavy on Sal Buscema's pencils. I thought I thought it kind of made Sal's work, and Sal has the definitive Hulk. Next to Herb Trimpe, I think Sal's got the most definitive Hulk out there. Makes the Hulk look very different, more more defined in the inks. So I wasn't a huge fan, or this was my first exposure to really kind of Hulk art. But looking when I can compare it now as an adult, I kind of think he's a little heavy-handed here. Other than that, I thought this was a great, and I think it was a great anniversary issue to kind of celebrate what the Hulk was before. It actually brought him back almost to where he started as far as the Savage Hulk or the rampaging Hulk, right? Where previously they had been doing a smart version of the Hulk, and now they went the absolute other way and made him even more savage and bestial, which I thought was a good move. And we've seen a ton of Hulks throughout the years, but I think this was a really good issue. It was a great jumping on point for me for Hulk.
Okay.
So
cool.
what did you guys think?
13th. Let's have your 13 cents worth.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd like to know what DC book Bud didn't get in order to get the dollar book for the Hulk.
You realize Bud we would never sully his comic book collection with it. He'd never buy a DC book.
I did read DC. I was not reading DC at this point. So yes, I was pure Marvel all the way when I was 13. So I would have probably asked my father for a little more allowance money to be able to handle a dollar book.
13 years old, what a great age, especially to read comic books like this one.
For sure.
The Sal Buscema art, I have to agree with you wholeheartedly here, Professor, because the inks are heavy. Sal Buscema, to me, is a definitive Hulk artist. There have been many great ones, but in this era, I think he was the king. And again, Bill Mantlo, how many times? Like, I think it's almost every show that we mentioned him. Like
surprisingly too, because he's kind of like out of left field. When you think of great writers at Marvel, Bill Mantlo is not the first name that jumps out of your mouth.
Correct.
That's a shout. He always has a reputation of being like the every story man, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's going to pitch in, but even pitch hitters hit the home run every now and again, right?
Yeah. I'm reading this comic book. Just again brings back memories. When I was a kid, just reading a book that takes place in Manhattan. And, every time I used to go to Manhattan as a kid, I'm like, where's Hell's Kitchen? Where's Midtown Manhattan? Where's Bleecker Street? So, it brings back a lot of those memories. But the Hulk, at this time, popular still with the reruns of the cartoons, the Spider-Man and his amazing friends, followed by the Hulk. And, Hulk had his few episodes, which was an amazing cartoon series. But this also reminds me of what if the Hulk went berserk, that what if tale. And here you have an answer, with no Bruce Banner to rein him in, kind of like committing a psychic suicide, if you will, in the earlier issues. He's just literally on a rampage. And I always loved the symbiote, early symbiote Spider-Man costume from Secret Wars. This is the era of Spidey I do like, when they changed his uniform. But Doctor Strange is, believe it or not, one of the heroes that's pivotal in Hulk's life. These guys founded the Defenders.
Yep.
And he always found Bruce Banner, the human, and Hulk, to be his friend. And Doctor Strange here the Hulk is suffering, clearly, but so is Doctor Strange. Like, he's stuck at a crossroads on what to do. You know, he watched Bruce Banner kind of give himself up because he didn't want to deal with the Hulk anymore. But there's still a problem. The Hulk is, you know, on a rampage in Manhattan. You know, you can't have that happen. So what do you do? So I like that aspect of the Doctor Strange um, pages in this book. You know, again, is he's not a guy that appears in every Hulk issue, but you know, for an anniversary issue, like Bud said, you want to bring in a big story, you know, big event or a lot of characters. So Marvel brought out quite a bit of number of their stable of characters here. You know, Johnny Stormer was the only one that represented the FF in here. So you see him. Obviously, you saw Spider-Man, Daredevil, Iron Fist. You know, pretty much got his hand crushed, and Power Man got depowered. Bad puns, whatever. But I think one of the splash panels I like is when the Hulk is confronted by the Avengers, because sooner or later, you knew these guys were going to have a stake in it if he's, you know, running all over the place in New York. And this lineup of Avengers is classic in itself. You know, Star Fox, Scarlet Witch, Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel at the time, the Wasp, Vision, and Thor. And, you know, I like this era of Avengers as well. But, you know, this was a showdown that I thought was inevitable. And this, like years later, when I read The Death of Superman, reminded me of Doomsday when he just trampled all over the Justice League. But here's the Hulk now against this band of Avengers, which if you look at that lineup, that's a hard lineup to get through. That's a very powerful lineup, and Hulk still finds a way to just get through that. And even with Thor, I mean, how many battles has Hulk had with Thor? And this one just seemed like, you know what? I don't got time for this. I got to beat you down. And you know, there was a good battle with that. I think that again, later in the story with Doctor Strange trying to find a solution. Look, if we can't control the Hulk and we can't keep him here, we got to send him somewhere. So it's like Doctor Strange, you know, kind of took a dip into the multiverse of madness. See what I did there?
Very well. Well done.
He peered into that. You know, I love this book for the fact that, yeah, you do have a lot of appearances. You see a lot of fighting, you know, Hulk smashing without talking. But there's also a lot of remorse on the heroes because they have fought alongside the Hulk. And they did get to know the humanity of the Hulk in Dr. Bruce Banner, who is a very intelligent man. And Doctor Strange clearly, among others, feels extremely guilty by the end of this book. Nobody wins in this book. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for this. And if Hulk 300 didn't sell you on buying Hulk 301, I don't know what will, because this is a very well-told story. It was well drawn out. I agree on the ink side, but overall, there's no way that you would not want to read issue 301.
Cool. Right. So I'm not a huge Hulk fan at all. I don't know if it's the repetition of it all. I've said this recently, Bud, on No Prize, when everyone was raving about the Immortal Hulk. It's just not my cup of tea. It's not my thing. However, looking at this book, Sal Buscema is one of my favorite artists of Marvel of all time. And you're absolutely right. The book does look heavy at times. There are some really nice little panels in there that just scream Buscema. So I'll go with this one, I think, just to kind of prove my point. There you go. So that's Buscema, probably. Look at his best. He's got the Human Torch going on there. Proper Hulk emotive face going. It gets a bit heavy towards the bottom of the page, definitely. I like how they try and tie in stuff. They say like the Human Torch is the only member of the Fantastic Four that's there because the others are in Secret Wars. But Spider-Man's in this book, and he was also in Secret Wars. So come on, Marvel, put your finger out your ear, get it right. Yeah, they're all there, apart from a fair few. Looking at this book, reading this book, of course, you cannot help but think about Planet Hulk, right? You can't. You read this book, you can't escape that fact. And this book is back from the 1984, and it's done with much more deliberation. There is a sense of remorse. Absolutely, I agree with you. 13th. You know, nobody wants to do to the Hulk what happens to him here.
Mhm.
So I think we said last time we talked about Mantlow's writing on Spectacular Spider-Man. He doesn't just write superhero stuff. There's like elements and connotations below that. I mean, just look how we looked at when we looked at Spidey last time. Just the different things that were going on there. It wasn't just a lovelorn girl. It was, you know, mental health. We're dealing with a battered woman type of thing. You know, we're dealing with all these sorts of different things going on. And then, of course, you got the Doc Ock Owl crime thing going on. So there's a lot going on, and it's exactly the same here. In ways, this book does remind me of Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, which was the first appearance of the Sinister Six. Because if you read that book, everybody appears in it. Admittedly, only for like a couple of panels and then edited right. For more Thor stories, please check out Journey into Mystery. For more Iron Man, check out Tales to Astonish and all that sort of stuff. They're like little segues. And I think this is kind of like that. Although that time around, it was only Human Torch had any real interaction. Here, of course, is Doc Strange. It's good to see some of the Avengers getting in there. So, although why would the Vision think that more gamma rays is good? It's like I'm a little bit tipsy on beer, so to sober up, I'll have more beer. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. More
It'll knock
beer.
you out eventually. I guess that's the premise for that thought.
Maybe. Yeah.
Too much of a good thing.
Yeah, 13 cans and that's it. I'm anybody's. So yeah, I think it's for a non-Hulk fan, I enjoyed reading this book. So it was a good shout. Good shout, definitely. Although I've got to say, why is he wearing a purple diaper all the way through? I have no idea.
Yeah, that was one of the things that jarred me a little bit. It wasn't pants; it was like purple shorts.
Yeah. Hulk must do #2.
So I guess overall, this Hulk was a smash.
Enough said.
Killing me. All right. Okay. So one trashing of New York down. Not a bad little way to start the show by getting rid of a whole massive state in America. I tell you what, why don't we do it all again with our next book, which is Defenders 100, Volume 1. This is from 1981. So that's right, this is 40 years old. Wow. 40 years old. This just proves something, that not every comic is super valuable. All right, this book on Comics Bay or Comics On, whatever you want to call it, is 99 pence or £3 or £5, and that's advertised as near mint. So a fiver for this seems like a bit of a steal. Here we go. So it's written by J.M. DeMatteis, one of my favorite writers of all time. Art by Don Perlin and Joe Sinnott, another name we talk about a lot. Colors by George Russo. Oh, I typed it wrong. Okay. And then letters by Chang and Leafman. I've got it down as 13th. This is your choice. So let's bring it up and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so we're talking about anniversaries and things like that, or extra events or what have you. Sometimes, like you'll see the word anniversary on the cover. Other times, you'll just see that it hits a certain number or a milestone, as I call it. So this was no different with Defenders 100. The Defenders, very, very quick history, founded by Namor's Surfer, Hulk, and Doctor Strange. Those four guys combined. I think I've said this on an earlier show. They're extremely formidable. But over the years, the team evolved. They took on more members. And with that also came more enemies, especially when you have someone like Surfer and Doctor Strange on your team. Never mind the Hulk, who's rubbed everybody the wrong way. Same for Namor. So the Defenders 100, the cover right off the bat, I just want to state that it is an homage to X-Men 100, the way that they're not fighting against each other, at least not yet, but it's just their stance and the way that the cover was pretty much put together. But Defenders lasted for quite some time, but in issue 100, if you've read the entire run of Defenders as I have, this is like a culmination of some of their bigger events throughout their run to this point. And the book centered on a lot of mind control, demons, and entities, and things of that nature. Eventually, the Valkyrie joins the team and as Guardian, son of Satan, Patsy Walker Hellcat. They fought Mephisto in the past and a whole host of other demons. I mean, this is just a setup for something huge. And I guess issue 100 in Defenders lore, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but in Defenders lore, this was a pretty eventful book. And basically, the son of Satan obviously would mean who is his father, Satan. So
Is it Darth Vader?
Yeah, the spoiler alert. So Satan organizes other demons, Thog, Satanish, and Mephisto. These are guys that the Defenders know who they are, and now they're all working in cahoots. Surprise, surprise. The Patsy Walker Hellcat, a character that I love very, very much. When I read this issue, I was like, what the hell? No pun intended. Where Satan kind of reveals to everybody that she is his daughter. How does Damien Hellstrom feel about that? Anyways.
It gets a little incestuous by some of these panels, though.
It does.
Just look at that panel there. I'm reading this as like, daughter, really? Is that like that? Really?
Yeah, the look on Damien Hellstrom's face later on in the book says it all. There's an interlude there where the last panel, where he just perhaps is drawn in the most defeated possible way ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, that's what these demons do. They don't beat you down, senseless. They just strip you of your humanity. They strip you of your love, your sanity, everything. But the heroes here, this is a very formidable group of Defenders, past and present, right? Later on, after issue 100, the run turned into new Defenders. So some of those members, like Valkyrie, Gargoyle, they survived to stay on the run. But here you see the original group of Defenders with newer ones. And, basically the Defenders were just a group of heroes that were not part of any other team. And so they just put them together. But here they are. And this book worked. It lasted for years.
That's better than the Champions did.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, ultimately, these demons, they like to play games. They want to come and conquer Earth, but everything was a game. And they split the team into a set of trials that they have to pass. And they did. But it was a grueling experience for all of them. My favorite matchup naturally would be Surfer versus Mephisto, but with the assistance of Valkyrie and Clea. I would love for this to have been a Marvel team-up book.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's just a classic. You got that sense when you're reading those pages, Surfer versus Mephisto again. Surfer just hits a nail right on the head. How many times am I going to tell you, no matter how much you try to tempt me, I'm going to give you the same answer every freaking time.
There it is. There's his panel there. That middle panel's there. That's what he talked about. Yeah, he's probably had enough.
Right. And one of the things that Satan says to them is, you have to find the light and all this stuff. And towards the end, the Defenders give their word not to interfere in a battle with father and son, but the Defenders cheat. So they took a page out of their book in order for them to achieve victory for the Earth. So this was just a lot of philosophical thought went into this book. I love the art in here, the Don Perlin art. And, this wasn't just a book that's showcasing, hey, let's just get a whole bunch of guys together and have them fight demons. There was a lot more to this book than what you might think. And the Defenders are kind of left like, wow, what do we do now?
So
and then the story ends.
So you've been raving about the Defenders for a while.
Yep.
I think we must talk about the Defenders at least more times than I talk about fishnets. So what is it about? What is it about the Defenders that you like so much?
I just think that if you look at the cast of characters, especially in this issue, right, there's a lot of characters there. And some of these are very popular characters that have had their own magazines, but you band them together, I don't think they ever got the respect that they deserved, and they almost kind of felt like they were the next best thing or an underdog. But
Mm,
who was in front of them? The Avengers, the X-Men,
mhm,
the Fantastic Four. How can you compete with that?
mm.
You can't. Not in this era of Marvel.
No, that's a
But
good shout.
when you put these groups of characters, some of these characters are Hall of Fame characters, and yet
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just never got that recognition.
yeah.
So I
Cool.
kind of like
Excellent.
reading that.
It makes you wonder how. It makes you wonder how and why. I'm going
Hmm.
to raise this just as like a question to consider, right? It makes you wonder how Defenders became so big, and it lasted for, as you say, this is 100 issues. It went on past this point,
Yep.
all right, and yet the same idea is behind a book like Champions, and it lasts 17. You know,
Mhm.
you kind of got to think, what is it? What is that? What is that intangible thing that makes the Defenders successful that the Champions didn't? You know, is it the fact that they had a cohesive idea of what they wanted the book to be? Is there some sort of symmetry in the characters between Doctor Strange and Namor and the Silver Surfer as the three main people, and people are kind of coming across from there? You've got Valkyrie in there, who's Asgardian, so you've got those kind of, four powerhouses of the corners of the Marvel universe. Whereas a book like Champions, it was the true mud of a book. It was like, just let's throw them together and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is pretty easy. Like I said, like these characters and Defenders, the original four were very established characters that have had their own books,
Mm.
whereas the Champions were discarded characters that we're like, wait, we don't want to just discard them. We got to bring them together, and let's use the Avengers formula by having a god be the reason why we bring these guys together, right? Avengers had
Yeah.
Loki, Champions had Pluto or Hades,
All
but
right,
it didn't
okay.
work. Not for as
It
long as you
didn't.
may have liked.
No, it
So
didn't.
So I kind of have a feeling of why they were brought together and why it lasted as long as it did. So the Defenders were originally brought together. Um, I think so. Doctor Strange had a book that got canceled, and so
Mm-hmm.
did Submariner, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there still was a fan base for those characters. So they decided, let's put them all together at one. We'll throw the Hulk in there because I mean the Hulk still has his fair amount of fans, and I think a lot of people wanted to see Hulk on a team book. Just to kind of see how that went around. And the Silver Surfer had a huge fan base and I just don't think they didn't really know what to do with him. But he only lasted a couple of issues in the Defenders book
Right.
before
Mm.
he was off doing his own thing, and they brought in Valkyrie and then Nighthawk. So to me, I kind of think that the whole idea of it was it was a team that wasn't a team. But it
Mm-hmm.
was also, I mean, I can't believe that we did a podcast 2 months ago on B teams and we didn't talk about Defenders, because really it was everybody that didn't have a book already or had one and got canceled ended up in this book. And
That,
you know, even like when Hawkeye left the Avengers, he turned up in the Defenders. Yellow Jacket left, Yellow Jacket turns up in the Defenders.
Power Man as well.
Power Man. And then right here, Son of Satan. Son of Satan gets his book canceled. He ends up in the Defenders. My biggest problem with Son of Satan is they never know how to draw his pentagram on his chest, and you see it in this issue. It's either as a pentagram or a big white star with this big white circle, and it changes back and forth depending on who's drawing them. But Don Perlin did it in this issue. You see it several times. Pentagram or just big star because I'm lazy.
It's a mood ring.
So
I can say why we didn't talk about this book as a B team book. All right,
sure.
I'm going to speak for my good friend, the 13th Crusader, in the 13th head.
It's an 18 book.
Yeah, this is an A plus book. Avengers,
All right.
don't give me Avengers. Fantastic Four, Fantastic Small. No, I'm not interested. I'm all about the Defenders. And he was going to go Invaders at one point, but we managed to talk about it.
I do love the Invaders.
Yeah, me too.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other jarring thing about this book. When have you ever seen in any other book Mephisto relegated to flunky?
Right. Infinity Gauntlet.
That's okay. Shout out, but that was, I mean, for me, I was like, why is Mephisto just kind of in the background this whole issue and just kind
Yeah.
of being a yes man to Satan? And now I'm like, whatever happened to Satan? He hasn't
Yeah.
showed up.
Whatever
Yeah,
happened to him?
they told him to go back to hell, and he did.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
to hell.
well, it's true.
All right, so New York gets destroyed again. Well done. To quote Han Solo, didn't we just leave this party? Maybe Gotham is safer than New York after all. Who knows? No?
Can I give a quick shout out here to
Yeah.
the art, because my favorite panels again are where the Surfer battles Mephisto, but the way that I like the Clea in here, like it was awesome. Clea, whatever you call her. But I like those panels, especially the part where Mephisto tempts her, and you see Doctor Strange is bowing in front of her. I thought that was that had me pretty interested there.
Yeah. You stole my thunder there. Well done, cheers, man. All right, so I love the dialogue in here. The way it's written, it's kind of very much everyone's a sow or a cow. You gotta love that comic code. Don't have swear words. They do get away with using demons and devils, of course, and DeMatteis, who is one of my favorite writers from Spider-Man, from Star Wars, pulls the old JSA trick by splitting the group into smaller teams.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, to go and do the like the team and then come together for the big ending sort of thing. Defenders wise, there are some odd characters in here if you're not a huge Marvel fan. Nighthawk, for example. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. Never mind.
Devil Slayer.
Yeah, but what? However, on the flip of that, I've got to say that Hellcat looks great as a demon. She is much better as a demon than that yellow jumpsuit she wears. And to reiterate with 13th, Clea is, for me, as always gorgeous. I think she is fantastic. She is one of the most underused, underappreciated characters in Marvel history, Marvel Universe. You know, she's Doctor Strange's right-hand girl. She's his Girl Friday, and yet she never gets the recognition.
She's his worst enemy's sister.
Yeah,
and here she is with Mephisto.
It's so for any time Clay is in the spotlight, for me is always a good time. Right. DeMatteis pulls out his trick. The trick is that love wins the day, not hatred. This is kind of a bit of a theme for DeMatteis, who's used the same sort of trick in Star Wars with the Cody Sunchild story that got changed and then pulled, which meant that Matthias left the Star Wars book. Don Perlin, is it just me or is he trying to be John Buscema?
Yes, I did see semblances of that, yes.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, that's going to be embellished by the fact Joe Sinnott's on there. So Sinnott's got in his head what these characters should be looking like. And the Mephisto looks like the Buscema Mephisto from the very first panel moving forward.
Yeah.
But again, for a book that I don't know a great deal about, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a rollicking ride. I would very much be interested to read some of the other stuff that comes in from that era. I think I read back in the 90s. I read Secret Defenders. Ooh, that was a stinker.
So what you're saying is Defenders 100 is one hell of a book.
Yeah.
Well, it's true.
Yes.
I'm on a roll.
You are. Yeah. You should be smoking a roll with your jokes.
It's good for your joints.
So I hear. All right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Here is one of our adverts for one of our other shows. Don't forget to check out, guys. We have a new Old Timers advert kicking around. Check out the UCPM for all the other shows. In fact, I can tell you, it aired on the Definitive Crusade episode. Go check the advert out with us. It is a charm. Just saying. Charm. All right. Of course, we're not going to advertise ourselves because we're here already. So here up is the Jank Think Tank. can tell that Josh has a Batman Beyond fetish. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I like that tune. Can you play it again?
Yeah, maybe on the next show.
Oh.
Yes, so there you go. For all the Magic Gathering fans out there, go check out the show. It's a blast if that's your thing. I've got to say I've tried it a couple of times. It doesn't work for me. I keep, folding where I should be, twisting. I know that's not the rules. It's fine. All right, next up is our final book. And I've gone back to my DC roots.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, woohoo! Yeah, I think I spent too much time in Marvel Land. So I am going with which book did I go with? I went with the fantastic 600th appearance of Batman in Detective Comics. So that would make it Detective 627. There you go. It's even got the word anniversary on it there, just in case DC don't recognize that you recognize what this is all about. All right, here we go. So this is from March 91. So this is what's that make that?
30 years.
30 years. Man, now I feel old.
Oh, we're not old. The books are.
That's right.
Right.
Got to
Yeah.
remember that. Got to remember that.
Of course, we're older than the books in this instance.
You just had to go and pee on my cornflakes. Cheers, mate.
Jeez.
All right. Okay. So this
joint relief.
Yeah. I need a roll. All right. Okay. We got it's £1.99, £1.99 up to a fiver. So it's a relatively cheap book. But man, what a book! All right. So writers include, let's see, we've got Bill Finger, Mike Frederick, Marv Wolfman, and Alan Grant. Art by Bob Kane, Bob Brown, Jim Aparo, and Norm Brayfogle. Inks by Bob Kane, Joe Gila, Mike DiCarlo, and Steve Mitchell. Colors by Bob Kane and Adrian Roy. There we go. This is probably the cheapest way to get the origin story of Batman from his first appearance. All right. The premise of this book is dead simple. What you've got is a reprint of sorts of the first Batman appearance. All right. So this is Detective Comics 27 reprint. Then what behind the scenes, you have then got 4 other takes of the same story from different generations. So you've got this one, which was based on the 30th anniversary. So this is kind of like early 70s before Neil Adams turns him into a dark detective. So what's that, late 60s, early 70s, something like that. Yeah. Then on top of that, you've got the 80s, late 80s with Marv Wolfman and Jim Aparo. And then you've got the early 90s with Alan Grant and Norm Brayfogle, who at the time had only just released the second new Batman #1 in Batman Shadow of the Bat. There you go. So before I go all nostalgic on this book, we'll go Professor, because I know you're not a huge DC fan. What do you think of this?
So this is actually I actually have this book, but I have a new appreciation for this book by reading it with I guess the lens of not being so old as I think I am. I actually enjoyed that. It was like the 4 different creative teams telling the same story, but which it's almost like a what if. It's almost like reading 4 different what ifs. So you get the original story with Kane and Finger, which probably when this book came out, I couldn't really hold it in as much appreciation as I do now. And it basically, those stories back then were simpler, right?
Yeah.
They weren't as they weren't as twisty, or you have to kind of guess where the plot's going as they were in the later stories. There's not as many of the characters that appear in this story that appear in the other 3 stories. And so I thought this was great. I mean, since this, I've read the first appearance of Batman a million times, but yeah, it's this book is really kind of this is an anniversary book. This is a celebration of of Batman, the Batman character, or Batman's first appearance.
Mhm.
How better can you celebrate it than have the best creative teams of those eras retell that story
Mhm.
in the through the lens of that era of stories. And we can all look at the different decades that our heroes appear in, and they're
Mhm.
all very different, right? You read an Avenger story in the 60s, it's different from the 70s, from the 80s, from now, right? Batman is no different, but so you look at the same character, but the different environment and different way of storytelling, and it really is kind of a celebration. If you look
Mhm.
at Jim Aparo, a classic artist for Batman, one of the ones that you think of when you think of classic Batman artists. Norm
Mhm.
Brayfogle, when you think of the 90s Batman, you kind of think of some Norm Brayfogle stuff,
Yeah.
right? You can't get away from it. And then I actually, the Brayfogle story was I think the one that had the most homage pieces in it, because
Yeah.
everywhere you look there was a creator's street name or a company
Yeah.
named after another different creator. It was all over the place as you read that story. So I actually thought that one was kind of like a really good shout out to everything that had come previously.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when we have this idea of talking anniversary books, I think you pegged it right, because I don't think that there really is another book out there quite like this one that
Mhm.
celebrates just all of the appearances from point A to where we here at 627
Mhm.
point B. We're way past 627 now,
Yeah. We're in the 1030s now.
yeah. So
1030s.
I think I don't even think we've seen one since that had a kind of celebration that this book did.
Okay.
So that's how I feel.
All right. Excellent. 13th. I will reinstate your TGC card for this review. There you go.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. So I agree with everything Bud said, and this has a slew or a who's who. See what I did there of
I
creators,
did. Yeah.
very
Well done.
legendary ones at that. The cover in itself, obviously, a recreation of the Batman swinging back in the day. Love
Yeah.
it. One thing that you get with this book, I miss this era of DC or books in general. 80-page anniversary. Nowadays, to celebrate an anniversary, you got to get a hardcover on the side of
Mm.
the book celebrating an anniversary. Anyways, you could look at this a couple of ways, right? You could say, oh, it's Groundhog Day or Groundhog Week, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
repeats. It's a recreation of an original story. I love the golden age version of Batman. He
Me
doesn't
too.
have the fancy bat gloves. His cowl is still not formed. The cape is
Mm-hmm.
different, but it's very, very simple. And this is Batman as a detective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how he came out. The To kind of emphasize that is the next story in this book where they recreate the story, but this time there's some different things in there. There's Robin for starters,
Yeah. The
and
only story to have a Robin.
correct. And Robin was obviously not in the original telling of this tale, but again, this still kept the foundation that Batman is a detective. And I think the lesson here, you learn it through the lens of Robin,
Great.
that you never, ever accuse somebody without having definitive proof. The laws in this land are innocent until proven guilty. And
Mm-hmm.
even if you have evidence, that evidence has to hold up in court. Not
Mm-hmm.
that I know anything about that, but that's what they take away from this book, right? And I love
Right.
this tale for that. And the art it's just classic Batman. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. And it's such a great tale. I like that they did put Robin in here because he's kind of like, giving Batman a hard time, but Batman just sticks to what he is,
Mm-hmm.
and then Robin learns his lesson. Fantastic. But my favorite tale of this book, honestly, is the Marv Wolfman and Jim Aparo team up here with Mike DiCarlo finishing,
Yeah.
introducing a new villain into this twist in the form of Pesticide. What a fantastic story. Jim Aparo, obviously, no secret. One of my favorite Batman artists. I know Machine agrees with me a million percent on
Massively.
that.
Massive.
And I cannot get enough of the panels. What you'll notice with the Jim Power art, not only is it great, but it's almost semi animated. right? You get action sequence. Marv Wolfman is a legendary writer,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes he didn't need to write anything because Jim Apparel's art still carried the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't see that kind of team up like that that often in Batman books. It was just such a great story altogether, and in a way was kind of gory,
Mm-hmm.
right? With pesticide using chemicals to kill people, and I'm like, what a great villain for this book. The Alan Grant, who's a very great Batman writer in his own right, teamed up with Norm Brayfogle, another great Batman artist. That just showed you the transition from detective to crime fighter and what have you. This is the Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
His personality is he punches a potential suspect before he's ever really proven guilty. So
Yeah.
it just shows you the brutality of Batman when he wanted to be brutal.
He
Mm-hmm.
punches him after he threw a kilo of coke in his face.
Exactly. You want to exactly. So, but it still shows elements of Batman still being a detective,
Mm-hmm.
but this is much more the action hero side of Batman. And the commissioner just tolerating it because the level of crime and the complexity and the severity of it is just it's another level. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, this is a very, very good book. I do see this quite often. It's not as expensive as people think. And when
No.
it comes to an anniversary or a milestone book, this is one of the better ones to get. You don't have to get a 30 or 40 or $50 hardcover book to celebrate an anniversary when you have this one here representing all the generations of Batman.
Cool. So to reiterate pretty much what you guys said, I picked this book because I love this book. Back in the day, I used to have a hardback, I think it was a DC Archives book, and it was from Detective Comics 27 up to Detective Comics 50. And you could see the evolution of the character, how the art gets better, how recurring things happen, the Bat Belt gets introduced and stuff like that. So going back to the case of the Chemical Syndicate, whoa, it was like it's just a breath of fresh air. We talked about the Hawkman book last time around, and that same sense of nostalgic love for the character is still, for me, for Batman, it's still here looking at this book. I get that you might think it's Groundhog Day, but I think through the lens of the different time periods, it can certainly change the way the story's told. So you've got a lot of, in the Brayfogle panels we're looking at now, we have a lot of those extreme sort of like action paces. I mean, look at Batman's face on that bottom panel. He's
Mhm.
proper, he's
Right.
whereas Aparo, who back when we started doing podcasts and we did our first UCPN Hall of Fame, I
Mhm.
put Jim Aparo in for my vote.
Mhm.
That's how much I love Jim Aparo. His is more, I guess, I'm not going to say, I agree it's animated and it's fantastic storytelling, but it's a little, some could say it's a little pedestrian compared to Brayfogle. But at the time, what you've got to consider is that you had Aparo on Batman and you had Brayfogle on Detective.
Mhm.
Then they switched. And then Brayfogle went on to do Shadow of the Bat. And then Aparo went back on to Batman. So that's how much DC love Aparo's work. It's how much everybody loves Aparo's work. I'm hard pushed to find a favorite. I would say, I don't know. I can't think of a favorite version of this book. With favorite story in this book. I like the original. I love the original. I love the one with Robin in because it reminds me of my childhood when I was buying Batman, and the fact that 13th you nailed it. You get to see it through Robin's eyes rather than through Batman's.
Mhm.
But that Jim Aparo stuff, man.
Oh yeah, it's gold, and it's hard. It's if you had to pick one, it really kind of tore me apart because I love Alan Grant and Brayfogle, but I
Mm,
think that they were way better suited on the Shadow of the Bat book at the time.
mm,
But when you're talking about Marv Wolfman and Jim Aparo, like, and
Mhm.
then you look at all the other works that they've done,
yeah.
to me it was like, yeah, I got to go with. And then the story in itself, introducing pesticide,
Mm.
was a great addition.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
that I agree that Matt Wolfman's a great writer. I'm not necessarily sold on the fact he's a great Batman writer.
Well, I think the Wolfman Aparo story is the best story in this book.
Okay.
Just and I do think that it benefits from having an actual villain,
Yeah,
and
sure. Yeah, yeah, it's a good show.
Right.
and I think that it's the more the detective work, and there's a couple of these stories actually that end with the villain falling in the vat of chemicals. So I
We're
kind of like,
crying tonight.
but I do like the fact that was kind of like the first appearance and the last appearance of a villain, and
Right.
you had to put someone in a costume. So that was I thought that was good, and that's really
No,
the only thing I have to
And
say.
I
and
mean,
although I said that about Wolfman and Aparo, overall, this book had good chemistry. See what I did there?
yeah, it
There
did.
you go.
Yeah,
Three
yeah,
for
yeah,
three.
yeah.
3 for 3.
Yeah, it struck out 3 for 3. There's a reason you bat ninth. You know that, right?
hmm hmm
We put you at 13th if the team was bigger.
There you go.
um, it's interesting. It's interesting when you look at the different ages of Batman. It is a true celebration of that book. I agree. I don't think I've seen an anniversary issue as well done as this. It's a really clever concept, really easily done, and it's just kind of there you go, take it, and you just look back on it now and you think, man, how much better is 627 over 1027?
Mm.
You know, but
I think because I do think that more so with DC characters than even Marvel characters, you see the different ages like the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Modern Age, and whatever age we're in now, it's just it is different, and you kind of have to kind of look at these stories through that lens of first of all, there's a different age group of readers that are reading the book, and I think that primarily comic book readers are getting older, not necessarily younger. So, I just don't know where they go from here. I think what we're all doing is we're driving towards the movies and cinema. So,
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately.
you see more of either swiping on the down low or an homage, quote unquote, more now more days than ever before. But I think in the Alan Grant Brayfogle part of this book, it's more of a respect thing. And if that's
definitely.
not true, almost every panel has a former creator's name on it. Even one of the guns that Batman holds to somebody's mouth has Grell on it. I mean, so like there's books, there's street signs, there's so much recognition on those that worked on Batman, whether it was for just a cup of coffee or for decades.
Yeah,
And it's just that that's really, in essence, what a celebration is.
I like O'Neill's books. That was my favorite one.
Mhm.
Yeah, you see Finger Alley in that Brayfogle story, and you're
Yeah,
like, oh, that's the best shout out he's ever gotten up to that point.
Finger Alley's a real place in Gotham. You know, Robertson Park, Dixon Docks. You know, these are well established places.
Is that where the
now.
prostitutes hang out in Gotham?
What, in Finger Alley? No, that's where the cheap ones go. You have to go down to BG Alley to get the really good ones.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Sorry. And on that note, on that bum note, see what I did there?
Oh boy.
That's the end of this show. Next time we have an open kind of theme. We're either going. We'll keep it in surprise. We'll tell you about it later. We'll talk about it after the show.
Secret crisis.
So all that's left to say is to thank the professor. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Machine, as always. Thank you, 13.
And the 13th Crusader.
My absolute pleasure.
Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows, including Professor.
The No Prize Podcast, all about Marvel Comics.
Excellent. And of course, the Definitive Crusade, which is all about the DC world. Flipside will be back. And of course, you go outside the panels where we get to talk to loads of different comic book creators. All right. So you've got a whole range of shows to choose from. All what's left for me to say is I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Adios.